The southern forests of Western Australia. An ancient landscape shaped by the elements and inhabited by a rich diversity of life. Many species living here are relics of ancient forests which covered the landscape a million years ago. Today, the landscape is a mosaic of forests, woodlands, heaths, swamps and river systems, home to a rich diversity of plants, animals and fungi. Careful management is needed to maintain this unique diversity, and science plays an important role in their conservation. In the thousands of years before humans arrived, these living things inhabited a landscape where fires were started by lightning. Later, Aboriginal people used fire to hunt, gather food and access the thick vegetation. The forest species have evolved traits to flourish in an environment frequented by fire. Many species actually depend on fire for regeneration or to maintain their habitats. But a wildfire, particularly in an area unburnt for a long time, can be intense and devastating. Today, the Department of Environment and Conservation, or DEC, aims to recreate these ancient burn patterns with mosaic burning. But what is a mosaic burn, and how is it done? Simply put, a mosaic burn is a patchwork of fires over time, resulting in an unevenly burnt area. This leaves a variety of habitats which have different burn intensities and include many unburnt refuges where wildlife can escape the fire. A fine-grained mosaic achieves a patchy burn on a very fine scale, even to the degree of a few metres.
With a mosaic burn, we're trying to burn small patches out across the landscape. Any one patch will only get burnt about every 6 to 7 years, but we do put fire in there every 2 to 3 years. With a mosaic burn, we actually go and put the aircraft across patches of the landscape, not across the entire area, so that we get this patchy result. And we then bring the satellite monitoring into the game, and we actually go and assess what's been burned and what has not been burned, and we use all those things to do our research trials in there as to what the effects are of those small patches of burns. It's actually got benefits in the fact that we're able to then have it that plants and animals can recolonise in those areas or feed in those areas by only moving short distances, as opposed to a broad scale burn where we have to actually go, for instance, kangaroos might have to go for a very large distance until they can get to somewhere that is burnt where they're able to graze in there. So it's got a lot of benefits for us.
The aim of this project is to create a fine scale of vegetation at different times since last fire, or at different seral stages, because we know that different seral stages provide different habitat opportunities for a range of organisms. So within a landscape, if we've got vegetation at different times since last fire, we're going to be hosting a broader range of biodiversity than a landscape which is all the same or similar age since last fire. What we're finding with the study so far, particularly with the invertebrates, is that different invertebrate assemblages occupy different stages since last fire. So we're getting, with time since last fire, we're getting changes in the species composition, particularly invertebrates and also in the fungi. The vegetation isn't changing that much in species composition, but the structure of the vegetation is changing, and so therefore the habitat that the vegetation provides is changing. Once we get the final results of this study, we're hoping that we'll be able to apply these results to a broader acreage, a broader scale, so that where we have high conservation values in the landscape, we can fine-tune our fire management to conserve and enhance and protect those conservation values.
A project of this complexity requires careful planning and the integration of skills and knowledge from teams across DEC, Science Division, Fire Management Services, GIS and Integrated Mapping Technologies, and Franklin District operational staff. Specialists in these divisions use the latest in mapping technology to identify sampling sites. On-the-ground research is then used to assess forest management techniques. Monitoring determines how successful our management practices are in protecting the environment. The science teams involved in field sampling and biological assessment are flora, fungi, vertebrates and invertebrates. London and Surprise Forest blocks northeast of Walpole were chosen as they allowed the sampling of 3 different vegetation types within close proximity and have a known fire history. And what is being sampled? From jarrah trees to the smallest mosses and lichens, plants are the most visible of life forms in the southwest forest. With over 6,000 species of plants, these landscapes represent a global biodiversity hotspot that is home to a rich population of vertebrates and invertebrates. Whether clinging to a hillside or growing in a swamp, plants provide food and shelter. In spring, wildflowers carpet the ground while shrubs and trees blossom. Mosses and lichens trap water that is used by other plants and animals. Invertebrates make up over 90% of animal species on Earth, and the forests and swamps are home to beautiful and sometimes bizarre communities with very diverse feeding preferences and roles in the environment. Leaf feeders such as caterpillars munch through fresh and fallen leaves, while other insect larvae bore through living or dead wood, the adults sometimes attracted to lights at night. Wasps, flies and butterflies sip nectar and pollinate flowers. Sapsuckers feed on the sugars produced by plants, while others suck on the blood of unsuspecting vertebrates. Voracious predators such as beetles, mantids, spiders and centipedes hunt in the forest canopy and on the ground in leaf litter. And many of these animals in one form or another are food for the more familiar vertebrates. The frogs, birds, reptiles and mammals which call these landscapes home. And the fungi, recycling dead plant and animal matter into vital nutrients for plants, while others attached to roots help plants take these nutrients up, their work going unnoticed until they fruit in spectacular shapes and colours. All of this diversity is sampled and recorded with teams establishing sample sites in the 3 vegetation types, open swamp and sedgeland, and 2 different jarrah forest complexes, and in both burnt and unburnt areas. Using standardised methods, these sites were plotted with transect lines and traps set. Teams then go out and monitor the plots. For the flora teams, this would mean spring and autumn. Cryptogams make particularly good subjects as they grow on any stable habitat in almost any environmental condition, going dormant in dry conditions and resurrecting quickly with moisture. invertebrates are also collected in spring and autumn. The bug team can find sampling to species greater than 10 millimetres because of the huge and diverse populations involved. Sampling methods include light trapping, pitfall trapping and hand capture. Hand sampling includes sweep netting, beating and hand searching in different habitats. Back at the Management insectary, the team of DEC entomologists process and identify the thousands of invertebrates collected from these sites. Vertebrates are more shy, often hiding by day in the dense undergrowth or flying high in the canopy. Birds are assessed in spring with the sight and sound method. While other vertebrates, including mammals, reptiles and amphibians, are directed with guide fences towards wire cage and pitfall traps. They are then identified, catalogued and carefully released back into their environment. Timing is critical when studying fungi, as for much of the year they remain unseen, so surveying is conducted in autumn when most develop fruit bodies. The Fire Mosaic project is groundbreaking research being watched by the world. Because fire plays such an important role, but can also threaten life and property, it must be managed properly. The Mosaic project aims to do that whilst enhancing the ecosystem of the southwest forests.